Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the modern market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and the crypto summit. What is going to happen? How are we thinking about it? What is the significance? We will be discussing it all today, loaded up for discussion. We've got also Coinbase looking to release tokenized coin. That is pretty interesting. Legendary will be breaking that down in a bit. We've got the news reported by Unchained. The XRP executives pitch Sol for the crypto reserve to sell Trump on XRP. A little bit of strategic negotiating there. We'll bring that report to you so you get a sense of what was going on potentially behind the scenes as part of the crypto reserve conversation. And then finally, BioNexus Gene Lab becomes the first NASDAQ listed company to exclusively prioritize ETH as a strategic reserve. So strategic treasury asset, sorry. Interesting stuff there. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs as usual, plus some general thoughts on the market. I've got Legendary co-hosting with me today. Cannot wait to get into it. But just a reminder, friends, nothing that we say here is financial advice. This market is very, very risky. We don't know anything for sure. So please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, it's Thursday. It's the 6th of March. It's the day before the crypto summit. You appear to be taking a little bit of a break, doing some baking, planning some other more hobby-like activities. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
GM, I like how we call the focaccia bake a hobby-like activity. It's not a hobby; it's a hobby-like activity. Yeah, I've been having a bit of a slow morning, catching up with Abi from AP Collective, kind of talking a bit about how he's been going about building his company, comparing notes, sharing a bit, talking and chatting live. That was super nice call to have in the morning, and it does feel a bit slower. I think it's mainly a reason that I go to bed earlier, between 10 and 11 p.m. And nobody has any idea where the market is headed either way. So there's no reason to stay up late night. I had this question this morning on my X account where I was like, obviously tomorrow we have the Crypto Summit, March 7th. And my question was simple: 24 hours after the Crypto Summit, will BTC trade higher or lower than the 91.5K it's trading at right now? And so far we have 200 votes in, and 50.5% think we're going to trade above that. 49.5% think we're going to trade below the 91.5K. So nobody has any clue where the market is going. So I feel like that's a good reason to at least sleep a bit longer and not try to squeeze out the short-term trades.
That's very, very interesting. I think that's definitely true. I had a post on this yesterday as well, where the kind of thing I've realized at this point is if you've been in crypto long enough now, which is for me only, it's crazy to say, only 4 years, although it feels like an increasing amount of time. If you're like relatively successful on that time horizon, which means that you haven't blown up, you're still here and you're like seemingly doing well, your opinion matters. Like the fact that you've been able to navigate all of the things that have happened in the last 4 years and you're significantly up, it gives me more confidence. I mean, maybe this is obvious to other people, but given that I've never considered myself specifically as like a day trader or even like a significant investor before, because that's just not where my psychology was. I used to be a teacher, I used to be a lawyer, and I started doing this stuff, started to go well, and kind of been building on it after that. But I think it's given me way more confidence to realize that, now hang on a sec, like my takes actually really matter. Like they can move a reasonable proportion out of 10. They're actually quite accurate. I've been doing so well so far. And so it gives me more confidence seeing that also other people just literally don't know. So you can genuinely come up with your own thesis. And I've been thinking about this a lot, like just drowning out some of the content that you see, which can maybe affect you, especially taking into account, I think, is general consensus that the majority of crypto Twitter, for example, has deteriorated over the years. So if that's the case, should you, if you're thinking about that as a trade, if you believe that it is true that the quality of crypto Twitter is going down over time, what proportion of your time should be allocating to it purely, to consume content? it would have to go down, right? Like if you believe the former to be true, then that should be the necessary consequence to that, which means that I get more time to maybe have my own thoughts, and also maybe, Legendary, what you said, have these conversations, like talk to people who um, you respect and who are building things and who might be excellent traders, but maybe behind the scenes, if you can't have that, if you can't consume that publicly and then put out your thoughts publicly, that's the way I'm kind of viewing it. Be curious to hear your reflections on that.
Yeah, very much agree on that. And I think the healthy thing to acknowledge after being in this space for years is that nobody has any clue of what's going to happen, because it's still so small that you can have like singular events impacting it massively over the course of a couple hours. Big hack, Trump posting something. It's just so small, so a lot can move pretty quickly. But I'm also very curious to hear from Funky. I think Funky is going to tell us to be more bullish again and stop all those hobby-like activity chats. But Funky, welcome to the stage, my friend.
Funky, can we have any hobbies? Is that okay yet?
You can totally have hobbies. No, but
Okay.
I want to just compliment you, B, because I think you perfectly articulated why I show up to this show every single day and have done so for like a year and a half. Because I don't care about the rest of CT. I care about quality opinions from people I admire and respect, and you and Legendary are at the top of that list, right? So, like, at the end of the day, I have very limited time in my role as a head of protocol partnerships, right? I don't have even a whole lot of time to put out my thoughts on the market on CT. And so this is exactly why I choose to spend my morning with you guys every morning. I wish Steven and hats off to Steven and Captain too, right? Like their show is fantastic. It just is always when I'm going to the gym. But there are very few high quality people who do this kind of work day in and day out. And those are the people you should be paying attention to. And that's why I'm here. Thanks.
Well, appreciate that very much, Funky. Taking a bit of a detour. Thank you very much for A, saying nice things, B, saying that we can have hobbies. That's always appreciated too. Yeah, look, I think, as you say, I think it's the perfect opportunity to the extent that everyone was all consumed by meme coins, to the extent that actually some people were a bit all consumed in the drama, because it's not just, crypto Twitter is not just opining on price. I know that's why a lot of people are here and they're interested in price action. There was actually a lot of nonsense that people were getting involved in. Anything to do with social groups who are insiders, who are not insiders, is basically a distraction from your own performance, whether that's from a business perspective or from an investor perspective. Like knowing which other person got into an AVAX presale or the sole meme coin runners before you is kind of irrelevant. But the hotter that environment got, the more even that social aspect started to become a huge drama. That's why sometimes you'll hear us say, like, look, I'll report on some of this news. I'll put it all the way down at the bottom of the snapshot. Because like, look, it's there. I know that it is kind of public interest, but this is really taking people's attention away from the things that might actually be able to help them focus. So I think that's super interesting. And I hope that, that obviously colors the way that we attack the show and the way that we present it. One final thing, Legendary, before we get into the main stuff, or maybe we're going to talk about this later as well, is interesting that the question that you asked, and ultimately I understand why you asked the question because it's an interesting question. You asked the question, which was, what do people think the price is going to be in 24 hours, right? Like 24 hours post Friday. And people are like down the middle, 50-50. I think, okay, fine. That's an interesting question. If you want to trade tomorrow, and we have some views on that, maybe we can talk about them later when we talk about the segment on the reserve stuff. But like, I guess the bigger question as a more serious investor in the space, if you're looking at this on a multi-year thing, is, okay, fine. There's this big event that's going to happen tomorrow. But do you think the price is going to be higher or lower in 6 months or 12 months or 24? And I appreciate once you start going above a year, that's like really getting to long-term territory for people. So at a minimum though, look, we're in March now, and I like to put this in the context of where we are in the year, because this is how I'm thinking about it. We're in March now. Summer's always quieter. May could be quieter. It's not necessarily always going to be like this, but if we're going along some kind of usual model. So the question for me is like, are we going to be higher 1 year into Trump's term? Because then it's also kind of laid over the presidency and his 4-year presidency. Post summer, into September, October, etc. That's the kind of region where I'm like, look, I can't even predict the next 3 to 4 months, I would say. Well, the thing that I would say is that I think we're going to chop around a bit, but 6 to 12 months, I'm like, I think that's the exact window of time where Trump, whatever he does politically and economically, I think that's the period of time where he would be interested in, putting turning this ship round, in a sense. Like, I know there's a lot of strife at the moment, politically, internally and externally, but that's the way I'm thinking about it. It's like the political aspect, the geopolitical aspect, and then a little bit on the internal domestic stuff too. And then, even just like the seasonal aspect. Legendary, curious for your thoughts there before we get everyone up to speed on what's going on today.
I'm gonna take a bit of the other side on that. It's kind of like a weather report. We can pretty confidently say or forecast how the weather's going to be tomorrow, how it's going to be in 2 days. But the more we look into the future, the less clear those forecasts become, and we can kind of right now expect, is it going to be a very, very hot summer or not? But we basically have no clue about that. And that kind of goes back to my point where I was saying, because this space can be impacted so strongly by singular events, see how we reacted to the tariff announcements, not only across stocks, but across the market as well. Same with the crypto reserve, which sent us up 10% on a day, corrected after that. There's like so many individual things that could happen, and how the tariff wars, how geopolitical situations, etc., could escalate on top of crypto policy. So while I can say the general trajectory is bullish, no idea if that is expressed in being higher or not price-wise in 6 or 12 months from now, because there's like way too many things that can happen, which can completely flip that on the head on a singular day or in a singular week or even month. So I'm just gonna say overall, I think we are moving up and to the right, but whether that means in 6 months BTC is lower or higher than now, absolutely no clue about that.
Yeah, I actually feel slightly more confident on that, but I just think the market is entirely schizophrenic right now. Like right here, right now, I think it's entirely schizophrenic. I might play around with some leverage just for fun, in very, very responsible amounts, knowing that.
I like how you describe the market as being completely schizophrenic, and then the next thing you say is you're going to play around with leverage for fun, but be responsible about that.
Yeah, like in responsible amounts that I'm happy to get wiped out on. That's the skill set thing. Like we're trying to build. I'm trying to build. That's like one of the things I've never really done before. So I'm going to be building that skill set. That's just how I'm going to be approaching it. So any losses, we've said this before. Any losses, that's my tuition fee. It's my tuition fee, and we'll see how long it takes for me to get a return on my investment. One key question for me, since we're just talking about it, let's get this out there. I have not heard a proper response to this question. I'd be interested in the YouTube comments. Oxy, Swizz, Crypto Mocha, Stefano, whether Funky, you've got an idea on this. Like, there's a core issue at heart here for any government, specifically the US government, actually, if they want to announce the strategic reserve tomorrow in any meaningful way. The key, the very challenging issue is that as soon as they announce something that is actually hyper bullish, the market will go up. Like if it is true, because look, we've had many announcements, but they've all been semi-announcements, right? They've kind of been regurgitating the same thing. There's no details. Yes, there's this Bitcoin bill being proposed by Senator Loomis. That's happening, but it hasn't gone through. So I don't know what the correct answer is to this question. How are they supposed to announce something super bullish, which will make the price go up if they announce it, and then therefore hurt themselves because they can't accumulate as soon as they can? Like, surely they have enough. Sachs, who is the AI and cryptos are, is one of the smartest investors around, right? That's what he does. It can't be the case that the government's position would be, okay, well, we're just the US government, so we'll just buy the top just because we can, because we have so much money. I mean, the money is the issue, right? There's a huge deficit. and that's one of the problems. But I just haven't heard a proper way around what I've just described. Like, what is it? Legendary, do you have a thought on that? Oxy's got his hand raised. Be curious to hear anyone else's thoughts.
There's multiple ways to approach that. I mean, the one answer would be just to not care about that and execute as quickly as you can, even if it means to buy 10% or 15% higher.
But they can't, right? So they have to go through all this procedure. So yeah, as quickly as they can could be in quite a long time.
True, but you could maybe secure a future contract on buying BTC at a specific price, which, you know, right after you announce it already might trade at a premium. You can mitigate that with options. That is one thing. Then the other thing is my crackpot theory that Michael Saylor is going to play a bigger role in that. That's the crackpot theory of him OTC selling positions. The other thing is,
I was thinking OTC. I was thinking OTC positions going on as well. But go on, you finish your idea, then go.
And the other thing then ultimately is, if you want to accumulate that and you want to do that in a way that is not impacting the market by buying spot, you will have so many people who would be interested exchanges, other big players, to OTC that with the US government, because that would full send the entire market so much. So I feel like everyone who's crucial to this industry would have an interest to make that BTC acquisition process as smooth as possible for the US government. Probably the truth will be somewhere in the middle, but really, really curious to hear from both Oxy and Funky on this as well.
Okay, let's do it. Oxy first, then Funky. Welcome to the stage, my man. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, can you hear me all right? Hopefully. Yep. So yeah, I mean, I kind of want to echo what Legendary said. I guess I don't think they really care that much like what price they're getting in at. I guess like Trump and David Sachs specifically, if they have their own personal, holdings, which I'm sure they do, and whatever foundations, even though they sold their position, I'm sure they have exposure in some way, shape, or form. So whether the U.S. government buys at Bitcoin at 90K or 150K, I don't think they really care that much. As long as the U.S. government has exposure, it's set in place now, and then in the future, it's just going to be harder for the opposite party or whoever comes in after Trump to get rid of all that without completely nuking the market, dumping on consumers' heads and all that kind of thing. It's just kind of like setting the groundwork and making it the status quo for the time being, so that it's even harder down the road for other presidents to kind of overturn it without making everyone super upset at them or what have you. So I kind of think Legendary's on track there, where they don't really care what price they get at.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard that idea actually, which is they don't particularly mind if the government's buying higher. The point being, there's a whole load of constituents, a hell of a lot of powerful and influential. The crypto vote is obviously very powerful and influential now. And so if it makes the people money, if it makes the country by defining the country as the people of the country wealthier, then that would be sufficient in their view, potentially. Funky, would be curious for your view on that take, or if it's different.
No, largely the same. I mean, I concur obviously with Oxy and with Legendary. And I said this some days ago that I don't think the US government really gives a damn about what the price of BTC is at any given moment. I do think that there's something to be said about the OTC possibility. And it is interesting that if you look at the list of who has been invited to the first sort of inaugural crypto summit, if you will, with the president's working group, every CEO of the major exchanges have been, right? So Brian Armstrong from Coinbase, the guy from Kraken, Robinhood, which we don't normally think of as an exchange, but they do deal in crypto. My question becomes, how much spot BTC is available via those exchanges, right? Because one of the things that we see, if you look at a lot of on-chain metrics, whales have been loading up for a while now. So the ones, and we know whales, good or bad, do love to manipulate the market, right? They are prone to sending in large batches of BTC to sell it, nuking the chart because they know they can see how much leverage is available. We know that the exchanges themselves also often go on liquidity hunts, right? I mean, we talked about how Bybit had like $1.5 billion hack with the E thing, and then like made a 400 million or something when the market puked. So it's very easy for them to make money. I think the question then becomes, will we see, if the US government gets involved and starts to actually acquire Bitcoin, are we going to get the supply shock, quote unquote, that we've often talked about? That there's going to be a point at which there will be little to no spot available for Bitcoin on exchanges. This is why, like, even I still buy DCA in Coinbase. And once I get to a certain point, I always keep it in my vault, which I'm sure if you guys are Coinbase users, you know what I mean with the vault thing. And once I accumulate a certain amount, then I take it out of the vault and I send it off to cold storage. Because I do wonder, will we get to a day when there's really not any spot BTC available? And what is that going to do to the price?
Yeah, very interesting stuff. Appreciate the thoughts, Funky. You mentioned the list. We were going to talk about this a bit later in the show, Legendary. We're just going to shuffle some of the stuff around. We'll do the XRP news and the list of the people going now. We'll just get into that now. We'll do that for 5-10 minutes. We'll do the sponsored stuff, and then we'll do the final two headlines after, because I think this is an interesting conversation just flowing on from what Funky said. There's two things I wanted to bring to people's attention. First, so this was the fuller list. This is shared by Cointelegraph yesterday. I'm showing it on screen for the people who are watching in. It might be too small for you to read, but I can read it out. So according to this, we've got who's attending President Trump's White House Crypto Summit on March the 7th. And as you say, there's got to be a plan here, guys. This list is not without thought and not without a method, I don't think. So confirmed is Michael Saylor, founder of Strategy, David Bailey, CEO of Bitcoin Magazine, Matt Huang, co-founder of Paradigm, JP Richardson, CEO of Exodus. I'm not familiar with Exodus. Kyle Samani, managing partner at Multicoin Capital. We've got World Liberty Fi. We've got the co-founder of Chainlink, CEO of Coinbase, Robinhood, Kraken, Crypto.com, and Ripple. So those are just very, very heavy hitters on almost 40% there are exchanges, and then a couple of kind of partners at venture firms, and some very prominent media, basically. So there's got to be a method here. I know sometimes we say in this space that there's got to be a method, and it turns out we're disappointed and there's not a method. But I can see how there's been some planning going on here, and I'm sure that this is pretty strategically coordinated in that respect. Going on, is there, Legendary, do you have any reflections on that before I maybe go into the other stuff on the specific list, what you think that could mean, or any other thoughts on the attendees? Just to note, according to this article, at least, it says unconfirmed. Vitalik is unconfirmed. Kathy Wood from ARK is unconfirmed. CEO of Circle, Jeremy Allaire, is unconfirmed. Paolo is unconfirmed. I think this means that maybe they're invited, but it's been unconfirmed. I can't guarantee that at all. That's just what's in the article. But Legendary, any thoughts?
Yeah, it's a very centralized list of sorts. You have the VCs, you have the centralized exchanges. Exodus,
no Uniswap CEO.
Exodus kind of being the exception there as a BTC wallet, but they also do have an exchange as well. But it does appear to be a centralized list of sorts, which on the other hand also like really makes sense if you think about the adoption that you want to go with or go for. I would really hope that Vitalik will participate in that. The one thing I also wanted to quickly comment on is the point that Funky had mentioned on the BTC balances. There we go. We have them up on screen now from exchanges. Oopsie. They have been going down significantly. So I'm sharing this on screen right now. Bitcoin balance a year ago, March 6, 2024, used to be 2.7M across all the centralized exchanges. And now we are down to roughly 2.2M. Actually used to go a bit lower, but recently picked up. So that's over a third of the balances disappeared from exchanges. It's almost, 600,000 BTC. That is super, super significant to think about that. And there might come this point in time that Funky is talking about when there's actually going to be a shortage of available supply. But going back to the list, and sorry for this little sidestep here, I very much agree with you. That is obviously very well thought out who is attending that event. And it, again, makes sense to have ultimately the exchanges there because they are the first touch point with crypto for most people, and especially for new people to be onboarded. Plus, they have this like very sort of holistic view on what's happening. And I actually prefer this constellation over having the Solana, Ripple, Cardano, ETH founders, like all blockchain founders there. Basically, I very much actually prefer the constellation which is being sent out right now, instead of having every basically blockchain competing for a spot in the reserve and the founder trying to shill their stuff at the summit.
Interesting stuff. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Really, really interesting stuff. I was just going off in some conspiracy theory in my head, so I won't dwell on that one, because I was trying to, while you're saying that, I was thinking, is this worth saying or is it too stupid? And I think it was too stupid. So if it was good, I would tell you, but it was a bad one. Okay. How did Ripple, so related to this, there was this article published yesterday, which I think is interesting. Unchained kind of making the claim that one of the ways, or one of the reasons perhaps, why XRP has been included is because CEO and the chief legal officer of Ripple XRP reportedly pitched President Trump to include Solana in the crypto reserve plan announced on Sunday to give it more legitimacy among the crypto community, which would then, by extension, help Ripple be more possible to include. Because if it was just Bitcoin, for example, that makes obviously everything look impossible to be included. Even if it was just ETH as well, that would also make it harder for everything else to be included, because Bitcoin and ETH are clearly more established than everything else. But as soon as you keep going further down, I don't know if you'd call it the risk curve or the technology curve, either the younger tech, or some of the ones that are just maybe less got a smaller stranglehold on the market, it then opens the door for more people, right? Because then more and more people can make an argument to be included. So that is the reporting here. And it was broadly criticized by everyone. I think everyone has kind of come together on the kind of broad criticism of XRP being included, along with Cardano. But it was interesting to see that was is being reported. I don't know how meaningful that is now. I've seen the argument being made, which is those things are being put on the table so that when it actually comes to it, it makes it easier to get Bitcoin in. And then it will kind of start with this broader base. People react very strongly against one or two of the things, and therefore it makes it easier for just the one main thing. I'm not entirely sure about that argument, to be honest, but it was interesting that has been put out there. Legendary. Any thoughts on this idea? I guess it probably makes sense from a narrative perspective. What are you thinking?
We touched on this idea yesterday, and I'm gonna re-quote basically Commerce Secretary Lutnick on that again, who said that Bitcoin is one thing, and then the other currencies, the other crypto tokens, I think will be treated differently, positively but differently. So it makes sense to speak about all of the currencies that you're like per se interested in giving some sort of exposure to when it comes to the home of blockchain, USA, but do then treat BTC differently from that. Now, whether that is a strategic move to try to communicate all of them before and then focus on BTC, so the other side can also have a win by pushing back on other currencies, or that's just the result of this a bit more, let's call it spontaneous communication, that we will probably never know. But what we know is what Lutnick has said on that, and that makes a lot of sense in my opinion.
Okay. Like it. I think that's fair. Look, we've completely reshuffled the show today. Let's get into the price action and the headlines, get you up to speed with all the things that you need to know. Then we've got a couple of other interesting headlines to discuss. We might round it off with a bit of a prediction for the big day tomorrow too. So getting into it, starting with the price action with the majors, we've got Bitcoin is flat according to this at $90,000 after everything going on. I'm pretty sure it was as high as 94 not so long ago. So the down, look, this stuff is going to be very schizophrenic. So earlier today, I'm just checking. Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin was almost at 93 just a few hours ago. So 3K down in not a lot of time. ETH is up a couple of percent to 2. Almost 2.3. XRP is up 4 to 260. BNB is flat at 600. Solana's up a couple of percent to 150. Getting into the meme coin side of things, we have Doge up a couple of percent to 20%. Pepe is flat. Trump is flat. Bonk is flat. Far more or less pronounced moves on the meme coin side of things. Pudgy Pengu is flat as well. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's been big moves on the meme coin side of things down in general over the last few weeks. Maybe one of the bigger movers is Fartcoin up 16%. So that thesis, whatever that may be, is continuing to exist. ARK is down 13%. I was reading Sam's AI agent or AI kind of focused market cap comparison and checking AI tokens. It seems like there's been a bit of a breakdown in general, in the sense that there's not a lot of correlation anymore between them. They used to move together in the market. I think what we're seeing now on that side of things is a bit of a breakdown. So that is that. Getting into the headlines themselves, as mentioned already, we've had the news that XRP executives pitch Sol for crypto reserve to sell Trump on XRP, trying to make it seem a bit better. We've got still to discuss today. Coinbase is looking to release tokenized coin. I think that'll be super interesting. We'll share what information we have on that so far. And also BioNexus Gene Lab becomes the first NASDAQ listed company to exclusively prioritize ETH as a strategic treasury asset. What does that mean? We'll share that in a little bit too. Legendary, that's everything from the headline side. Anything going on the NFT side?
Yeah, I think the most notable thing to pick out is CryptoPunks are actually getting a lot of volume, floor price at almost 38 ETH. Lots of sales, also definitely above floor sales. And when that is the case, what's also always the case is that the V1 CryptoPunks are moving. They're up 18% over the day at 2.2 ETH floor, but that is definitely the collection, the original CryptoPunks that's getting a lot of attention right now, whereas the rest of the JPEGs, the apes, the pudgies are more or less following the market up and down. I think overall, over the entire week, we are still up. We still have seen pudgy penguins being up 9%, bored apes being up 3%, but definitely the majority of the mindshare is moving towards punks right now.
Like it, I noticed that. I think when ETH goes, towards 2K, punks at around 35 ETH start to look pretty tasty. I think between that 70 to 80K region, they very, very rarely, if they ever go to 50, they have always bounced back historically. So even in that 70 range, it's like pretty decent value. I think that's what people are thinking. And now ETH has bounced as well. Getting into the Web3 Roundup to get you up to speed with everything else in the space. Interestingly, Bitwise has filed for an Aptos ETF. The ETFs continue on the ETF conveyor belt and continue to come. Belarus President Lukashenko calls to begin mining cryptocurrency. Interesting. We had Crypto Mokus in the YouTube comments saying that the way he thinks the states will accumulate Bitcoin is through mining, maybe a national Bitcoin mining plan. That would be one way. Taxpayers don't necessarily have to spend dollars on the purchase of it, although I guess it would cost some money to participate. Jump Crypto is preparing a US return. People want to do business in the States. They want to get back involved in crypto if they're out of it. Mega ETH announced no airdrop for public testnet. I think that was received pretty well. People are pretty tired of the various airdrop campaigns. And I think they have the brand to be able to execute on that. So that's interesting to note. Falcon announced data partnership with Kaito, amongst others, for a new platform for token analysis. That's pretty cool. 9DCC announced partnership with MasterCard to produce a collection of 9 premium items. And that's it. That's the Web3 Roundup for today. Before we get into the couple of main headlines for today, after we've had all this bigger conversation, Legendary, anything catching your attention?
Quite a few things, but unfortunately we don't have the time to discuss all of them. So I'm just going to pick the mega ETH news, I think that's pretty strong to come out and be like, look, we're not going to reward the button clicking on testnet. That is just not something that is of interest to us. And also like how mega ETH in general has been communicating and how they have been approaching things. It's pretty refreshing to see that from being, we're going to do sort of an NFT ICO with the fluffs. We are going to focus on the echo deals and not focus on like max raising from VCs. Now breaking with this tradition of basically not rewarding the testnet activity, which probably will be to the anger of some of the bigger farmers who typically have hundreds of wallets ready to do so. I just like that. I like how they've been communicating so far.
Yeah, you're right. I think in the end there is merit to incentives, and I'm sure there's going to be incentives at some point down the line. So I think it's always a balance for teams to get those incentives right. And some people have done incentivized programs really, really beautifully and have executed perfectly, and it's had a meaningful impact on their protocol. And sometimes people get it wrong when they go in the wrong direction. So that's interesting to note from their side. Okay, cool. Let's get into the main stuff. We still want to talk about Coinbase looking to release tokenized coin, which is super interesting, and this entity which decided to put ETH as its strategic reserve treasury asset. Sorry, but before we do that today, let's get into our partner segment with Somnia. Somnia is an EVM layer 1 blockchain that's seriously fast, and it's going live with its season 4 of quests. What season 4 is you can get your Somnia points, and they're going to go live on March the 6th, today at 9 a.m. Eastern time, when you can start getting your points. So what can you do? One way you can play around is to start trading in the meme coin trading contest. And remember, this is completely free because it's on testnet. You can trade Dogecoin, Pepe, and Bonk to battle for the top spot, and the winning token will become Somnia's official mascot. So in summary, you can earn Somnia points for trading and participation. You can be a part of the testnet campaign and help choose Somnia's first ever mascot. And a reminder, there's no cost, no gas, just fun and rewards as part of the testnet points rollout. So if you want to start questing, we'll drop the link to the quest in the comments of the space below. It won't be live at the moment, but it will be there if you need it. And thanks again to Somnia for partnering with us this month. We look forward to speaking with founder Paul tomorrow. He's a super interesting builder, started at Goldman Sachs, moved to the startup Improbable, which became a unicorn, and then has moved on to build Somnia. So looking forward very much to that conversation tomorrow, which will take place after the usual show, just like we do on Fridays. So that's that. Let's keep it moving, Legendary. We've got the coin news, which I'm super interested for you to break down for us.
Absolutely. Before I do that, I'll quickly throw it to Funky because I think he had something on Somnia to say, and then I'm going to introduce what's going on with Coinbase. Funky.
Yeah, just super quick. I am stoked that you guys are interviewing Paul. I actually watched his presentation at Modular Day, the same day that I took the aliens picture of Bread when he was on that panel. Paul was the leadoff hitter, if you will, on the presentations. And we're looking forward to trying to support their testnet, which is now live. But what they're building is super interesting, and I'll just save it for the interview, but really, really impressive. And I can't wait to hear that now tomorrow.
I love to hear that. Thank you so much. All right. Moving into the headline. So basically, it's a topic that has been up for discussion before. It is Coinbase yet again thinking to tokenize their coin stock to bring that to the blockchain. They wanted to do that in the past is the key takeaway, but have been stopped by doing so. Obviously, now with the SEC being way more friendly from a regulatory perspective, stopping all of their investigations, Coinbase is again making that move to have a way to tokenize the securities, to have a way to tokenize the Coinbase stock specifically, which I think is extremely relevant because not only would it set a precedent for other companies to do that, B, would also help to make other stocks tradable in a more significant way. I know that it's like possible to do that in synthetic ways, but often so with very, very low liquidity on chain. And there's just been a couple of protocols who had been exploring with that or had limited stocks listed. And it would, in my opinion, make for a very crypto native appearance and like also for a very mature industry if you have a stock that is both tradable on exchanges, but also because it's ultimately a crypto company, tokenized on the blockchain as well. The thing that I'm thinking about that as a follow-up question, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that, because we've been speaking about base season for quite a while on the show, and obviously have tackled the question, is there ever going to be a base token or not? Could you see a world where base at some point decides to reward its users, but not with a specific base token, but just airdrop a part of the Coinbase stock to base users?
I thought it might be. So wait, which way around did you just say it? You said you thought it would
No
be
base token, but the airdrop is Coinbase stocks for base users.
I think I heard maybe the alternative idea, which is base token for coin holders. No, Coinbase shareholders. I think the way that you just said it is the right one. I'm just getting mixed up. So say all of the people who've been using Base and all of the ways that they've been measuring the metrics in whatever way, and if they want to take those stocks and put them on chain, then instead of being rewarded with a token, you're saying they get some stock in Coinbase. That's your thinking.
Yes, they get it on chain as a token if they can tokenize their security, but instead of like inventing, quote unquote, inventing a new base token, why not take the stock and do that instead?
Do you know what? I like the idea. I like it. I like it much more. Obviously, you'd need to KYC. I don't think you can get around that, and maybe lots of people would be resistant to that, but that's just the reality of dealing in that particular arena. You're going to have to do that. I like the idea. I like the idea. I think in the end, the thing with all of these tokens, and the only reason why some of them are starting to actually accelerate in value and people are starting to appreciate them more, things like Hyperliquid, which are buying back their token, things like Aave, which just announced they're buying back $1 million a week of their token as well, like revenue generating protocols which are allowed to turn their fee switch on and then either buy back their token, and then the next step, the logical next step from where we're going, is not only to buy back your token but be able to distribute it to holders of your token, basically operating as some type of security. The reason why you can't do that now is because it's not a security. But I think at some point in time, we're going to have to figure that out, because that's what makes these tokens valuable. The ones that are not able to do that trend to zero over time and really, really struggle. The ones that are figuring out a way to deliver value back to the holders, either via buybacks and seeing their underlying position increase, or by distributing their fees to them in, either, so this is either in the traditional model, this would be via stock buybacks or via a dividend. I think we're going to have to go in that direction. So this would be a really interesting way for Coinbase to go about it. You just put that question to me, Legendary. What do you think?
I think it would be a reasonable model. I think there's maybe, as you said, a couple of regulatory questions that you have to think through. Obviously, you've mentioned KYCing. Then the next question becomes, would you then allow for the tokenized stock to trade on the secondary market? If that trades, can it only trade to KYC participants? I don't know if Coinbase is actually paying dividends, but how would those be received if they were to pay dividends? Is it yield bearing within the token? Can you only receive dividends if you're KYC'd? There's like a lot of questions that are tied to that, where I don't think there is a clear answer for that yet. But in general, I do like the model, because it would be the most beautiful case of an actual utility token if you can tokenize a company's share. But I'd also be really curious to hear on that from Funky, given that he is not only our US expert, but also our Coinbase expert in residence.
Yeah, I mean, I'm bullish, obviously, right? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, I would love to see some form of tokenization. For the longest time, they've said that they weren't going to have any kind of token. As a Coinbase holder in regular equities, I would love to see some way for them to get people who are in TradFi into checking out Base, and by doing that to have some kind of airdrop. I don't know how they would do it though, like the logistics of trying to bring tokens to people who hold the stock or whatnot. As just a bread show up too, and as a as a fellow equity holder, I'm sure he'd be interested. And I'm sorry if that answer did not make perfect sense because I was also trying to juggle something in the background. But yes, in general, I'm a fan of trying to tokenize coin. And I feel like that would be the initialization of sort of this grand tokenization scheme that everybody keeps talking about. We know a lot of these things are going to go on chain, just enhance efficiency and everything else.
Yeah, fair point. I think it's definitely something people are curious about. I think we're going in that direction. So will be interesting to monitor that as we proceed. But the thing, just a final point on it, I know everyone's looking to Coinbase about it and that will make the headlines. Like there are things happening right now which you can observe in how some of these tokens are delivering value to their holders in ways that people previously thought was not possible. Looking at Maker, looking at Aave, looking at Hyperliquid, like people looking at Athena, I believe they had a proposal, the ENA token as well, had a proposal out to turn the fee switch on. They're making insane revenue every single day as well. So there are things happening already in that field. And my eyes are definitely open to those as well, because I think that's definitely worth keeping an eye on. Okay, let's hit the final headline then. Legendary. This was pretty interesting, actually. All the focus is on the crypto strategic reserve. And then there was this news coming out of, I believe it was Malaysia. BioNexus Gene Lab becomes the first NASDAQ-listed company to exclusively prioritize ETH as a strategic treasury asset. What do we need to know here? What is interesting about this? Why is it important?
Absolutely. It's actually my favorite piece of news from the day. As you said, they did announce, the company BioNexus Gene Lab, that there is a board approval of an Ethereum treasury strategy, also the release of a strategic white paper that goes with that, with, as you said, the focus being on making it the single most important treasury asset for the company. Maybe just zooming out a bit and trying to understand what BioNexus does as a company, if that is in any way, shape, or form related to the blockchain. It is not really. They are specialists in blood-based genomic screening, basically doing less invasive blood work, analyzing RNA to test for cancers, inflammatory diseases, et cetera, et cetera. So the core business has nothing to do with blockchain, but yet they very much like that idea of focusing their treasury around ETH. And that's been something that has been discussed for a while. If there's a company that's basically going to try to mimic strategy in a sense, but do that with ETH. I also remember that Machi, Big Brother, half jokingly had posted about buying a company that is listed and doing the very same. Now, to me, the interesting question was, how is the market reacting to that? And the market likes that news a lot. If you look at the pre-market for BioNexus Gene Lab, the stock is up 9.8% on the pre-market, which is, extrapolate a bit, quite a significant move for the stock, which has been, at least year to date, in a bit of a downtrend. So it is fascinating to observe that strong reaction. The thing that makes me not really worry, but makes me a bit cautious, is to see, once they start to execute on the strategy and actually accumulate that ETH, if we'll also see a similar disconnect between the stock price of the company and their ETH holdings. We've seen that with Metaplanet in Japan, where I think the company trades, or the stock price trades, like 7x above the net asset value of the BTC that they are holding. The other point of that would be to say that probably out of strategy, Metaplanet, and now BioNexus Gene Lab, BioNexus Gene Lab actually has, quote unquote, the strongest business, because Metaplanet is obviously a BTC education news company who at one point started to accumulate, so like very much tied into the crypto ecosystem before they've become this like main acquisition vehicle for Japanese people to get exposure to BTC. But with BioNexus Gene Lab, you have a company who's doing something completely different and now is suddenly changing to start talking about ETH and the treasury. It's not the history that Michael Saylor already has had with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, which makes it super interesting to just observe this piece of news and also observe how the market will react on that once trading is live and once we'll see this treasury coming coming to life.
Interesting. Yeah, appreciate the breakdown. That's really, really interesting. I'm not familiar with anyone else that has taken the ETH path so far. So I guess we will have to see how that goes.
Just two additional bits on that, maybe because I thought it's interesting. So they already did publish that white paper, how they think about ETH. And there's a couple of things that they mentioned in there. One was, unlike Bitcoin, ETH provides an additional revenue stream through staking. Talked about the 3 to 5% staking yield that they hope to achieve. They talk about the upgrade path for ETH. They talk about Pectra. So they did have a look at, well, ETH's roadmap into the future. And they also talk about layer 2 integrations, specifically about Arbitrum and Optimism, when they kind of have this look at why ETH and not BTC, and then about the institutional integration of that. The thing that they don't really have talked about is any way, shape, or form of how they would link that to the business. So there's like no fluff talk in there of, and now we can make our blood analysis more secure by putting that on chain. It's just literally looking at it as an asset class and saying why, from a technical perspective, because of yield, because of smart contracts, and all those other different things, why we like that more than Bitcoin. But it's not trying to somehow, there's something I forgot to mention before, but I think it's important. They don't really try to like profit from the hype of cryptocurrencies of ETH and trying to find like a weird way to somehow link it back to the business model. They purely look at it as an asset.
That's interesting. Hot take there, Legendary. What would you tell me if I told you the thing that we're going to do with our treasury is to go into ETH instead of Bitcoin? Well, not all of it, but if that was the proportion, if you were the council.
I'd rather lean Bitcoin, to be honest, just because ETH needs to be managed a bit more actively in terms of trading, and it kind of distracts away from focusing on building the company.
Yeah, that would be my instinct as well. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Although you mentioned MetaPlanet as part of that conversation as well. Pretty cool. I mean, I need to look into, everyone always mentions MetaPlanet. I don't know if anyone knows specifically what they do. You said they're like a media / education company. Why don't we just be MetaPlanet? Let's just be MetaPlanet. They've seemed to doing pretty damn well on educating people about Bitcoin. I don't mind. I don't mind taking a slice of, or taking a page out of their book. In that respect, need to look into that, to be honest. Look, that is our show for the day. We hope you enjoyed it. As usual, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour. We're live on X. We're live on X video, in the spaces, on YouTube, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts too. You can catch us there. And just a reminder, we'll be live tomorrow. Obviously, it's a big day tomorrow. Got the crypto summit taking place. Any final thoughts, Legendary? Quick one before we close out.
I'm not going to trade it. I'm just going to wait and see what happens. Not trading it.
Up and to the right. Long term perspective. There you go. Have a wonderful day. Take care. And we will see you on Crypto Summit Day. Bye-bye.